fun with, not something you're going to lock away and protect from people. You want to be able to take it out and enjoy it. That's what we do here.
What's up, everybody? It's Big Herc with the Fresh Out Car Hustle again, and I'm here at the homie Barrett with his DeLorean. What's up, Barrett?
What's going on, baby?
And I'm gonna let him do his thing right here and tell you a little bit about his car.
So what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? As we'll go to a little bit later into more detail about how I got this beauty, let me walk you around this little thing. 1981 DMC DeLorean, DMC 12 actually. Yes, I know you're wondering, it's like, why is the gas flap pink? And that's what this is, by the way. This is the gas flap. Otherwise, you'd have to open the whole hood. Unfortunately, later designs, they got a little bit lazy and they wound up not having this little piece here, so you actually had to open the entire hood to be able to get it. Not very convenient. But yeah, so this is pink. Don't judge. This entire car was actually plasti dipped hot pink. For those of you who are like, hey, yeah, how is plasti dip? Should I do it to my car? I don't recommend it, or at least on an older car. It gets in some of the seams and every little crack and crevice. Yeah, it's really kind of a pain. But it did look really cool. And a lot of guys give me shit for it. They're kind of like, why would you plasti dip a car? Are you kidding me? It's like, that's stupid. No, don't do that. That's hot pink, really, of all the colors. But I will say this. I got more attention from girls out there than I've ever gotten in my entire life. No matter how much money you got in your hand, no matter what kind of car you drive, if you have a hot pink car, oh my God, it's so sweet. Can I sit in it? Can I just take a picture in it? Yeah, hi, what's your name? Pleasure to meet you. Take note. So actually, yeah, maybe plasti dipping a car hot pink isn't that bad of an idea. So that's the story of the gas cap. So I went ahead and I peeled it all off, left that there, just kind of a little reminder and everything, some memories of that time. As you can see, don't let the fact that this is a sports car fool you. No power brakes, no power steering, not really a lot of power to be honest. But out of the 2.9 liter Volvo V6, came with stock on a manual 5-speed about, I wish I was making this up, about 110 horsepower. Out of an automatic, you're getting about 95 horsepower. So not the best. What's going on, guys? My name's Barrett. Welcome to my 1981 DeLorean. She sounds good. So let's go for a little drive. Now, this is actually my second DeLorean. First one I bought back in 2006, as most people who were pining over the car since the day they had first seen it. I was no different. I was, I think, probably about 5 years old when I first saw Back to the Future. And unfortunately, it changed my life. Now, after drawing, buying any and every toy, picture I could find of this stupid thing, I finally was able to live out my dream in the summer of 2006. I wound up heading up to Minneapolis, Minnesota, and finding a true barn find of this car. Actually, no, a stainless car. My first one was stainless, so for all those purists out there who are very upset that this is painted. And I found a... most people are oblivious to this car, unfortunately, because they can't see it. As you can see, most cars are, we're literally under people's side mirrors at this point. The thing's roughly about 44 inches tall. It's not the tallest car, and this one's been lowered too, so we got that going for us. So, on the whole, people just, they miss it. And then you got guys like this over here who just camp out. People just like seeing it. It's kind of fun. You just can't help but point and stare and just be like, oh my gosh, a DeLorean! It's kind of like seeing a little person. You're just like, oh my god, a midget! It's kind of fun. We might want to edit that last part out, but that's alright. We can leave it in. I'll allow it. So, my first DeLorean I picked up in the summer of 2006, and it was a stainless steel one. So I got that going for me. I bought that off of eBay, sight unseen, just based on the pictures and the conversations I had with this guy. Super nice guy. It turns out he was a collector, and like most car guys, his wife finally put her foot down and made him slim down his collection. He had about 6 cars. That's a perfectly reasonable number in my book. And she wanted him to be down to 2. The DeLorean was one of the cars to go. And I went ahead and I offered him what I thought was stupid money at the time. He was asking roughly about, I think he was asking like 16. I said, hey, here's my story. I'm just a kid in Arizona. How about 11.5? He's like, you know what? You're a good-looking guy. You sound like you know what you're talking about. You sound like you're going to give the car a good home. He said, I'll let you have it for 11.5. So I flew to Minneapolis, picked it up with a buddy of mine, and drove it back to Arizona. In the summertime. This is June, mind you. This car does not have the best cooling system in the world, nor did it ever claim to be. And now I'm going to be driving it cross country. Now I know a lot of you out there are thinking that DeLoreans are synonymous with reliability. Well, not so much. So I was literally taking my future in my hands, and my friends at this point too, to try and figure out, will it make it back? Well, luckily, a friend of mine in high school, I had actually grabbed off of the main drag strip in Joplin, Missouri, was cruising in one of these one night, and I flagged him down, I pulled him over, I was like, hey, you gotta pull over, I gotta check out your car. He was nice enough to pull over, and I made a friend for life at that point. His name was Kyle. Cool guy, by the way. I highly recommend checking him out. His name's Kyle Franklin. He's got some cool stuff. Unfortunately, his DeLorean did not get a lot of use after high school, and he wound up locking it away just for other miscellaneous mechanical problems, and, you know, life happens, as with most car guys. So, I stopped by good old Joplin, Missouri, to surprise my mom, who was still living there, and let her know that I had finally bought my dream. Since Kyle lives close by, he was nice enough to offer his mechanical expertise, so he replaced belts, gave everything a once-over, replaced my trunk cable, and was like, alright, you're good to go. Good enough for me, cool. I've got the blessing, I'm on the road. It's a little bit low. So, pulled into Arizona finally, another 2 days later. Everything was fine, with the exception of the air conditioning not working and the passenger window never rolling down. And the vapor locking of the fuel pump, so we did have to go ahead and drive for maybe about 100 miles until the fuel got so hot it was boiling in the summertime, and then we had to put nice cool gas in. So we'd never get roughly under half a tank, which was good because we never actually strained the fuel pump. So, had my dream car, and I remember pulling into my garage and thinking, alright, now what? This was my dream since I was a kid, and now I got it. So now what am I going to do? So ever since then, I've just been still chasing those dreams. And that's the important part. Accomplish one dream, gotta find another. Keep moving forward. Since then, I've had a couple cars on and off. Nothing quite this exotic, but definitely some cool, fun stuff. And sold my first DeLorean for 15 grand. So I'm really proud of this. I've only taken, out of all the cars I've flipped over my entire life, I've only taken one loss, and it was only for $100. I was pretty happy with that. So I went ahead, sold my first DeLorean, and this was 2007. I sold it in, we'll go again. So I wound up selling my first DeLorean in 2008. Packed up everything in Arizona and I moved out here to LA. Why? I still have no idea sometimes. In doing so, I got a call from the guy I sold the first DeLorean to. And I said, hey, if you're ever going to sell this car, just give me first dibs. That's all I ask. He's like, yeah, of course, no problem. So he calls me up, 2010. I'm in LA, I'm living in an apartment, still trying to figure things out. Calls me up, he's like, hey, how'd you like to buy the car back? I'm like, I'm really not in the position to, but I got a little bit of money in the stock market I could play with. What do you want for it? He's like, well, how about 10.5? I was like, 10.5? I was like, yeah, it sounds very reasonable. What's wrong with it? He said, nothing. It's pretty much in the same condition that it was when you sold it to me. Cool, great, sounds good. It wasn't. He did the one thing you should never do. Never let a car sit. These things, especially old classics, historics, vintage, whatever you want to call them, these things need to be driven and driven hard. These are not pampered highway miles on this thing. This is a well-driven machine, and it's given me a lot of hours of pleasure. So, now I bought my DeLorean back for the second time. It's doing not so great. I get it delivered, it's literally dropped off the car hauler with a dead battery. I try jump starting it, I try pushing it pop the clutch, everything. Come to find out later, one of the few DeLorean repair facilities in North America, actually, is just down the road in Garden Grove, California. having it towed down there. He's like, well, let me take a look at it. They get it fixed. Claims to be just didn't have gas in it and a couple other little things, but they got it running, no problem. Says the only real issue is there's a drain on the battery. I'm like, oh, fantastic. Chasing out an electrical issue, especially on an older car, is not a fun thing. Probably one of the worst things you could possibly do. Or, I guess, we'll call it investing in. So, knowing better than to try and throw good money after bad and just not having the passion to... Actually, no, the passion's always there for this car. Not having the money to fulfill my passion for this car was the biggest instance. So I decided, reluctantly, my very first DeLorean, although I wound up getting it back, I had to sell it. So I wound up selling it for $14,000. Found some guy in Australia who just had to have it, packed up everything it came with, threw it under the hood. He worked out the logistics. Tow truck came and picked it up, 14 grand back in my pocket. Well, in meeting the guys in Garden Grove, California, they wound up saying, hey, you know what, anytime you want to come by and just hang out, you're always welcome here. Just cruise on by and, come take a look. If you even want to take one out and everything, you're more than welcome. I'm like, yeah, sounds great. I appreciate the love. DeLorean community, really good group of people. Very nice. It's hard to be introverted, and you can't really be an asshole when you drive one of these things. You really kind of got to be lighthearted and have a sense of humor. So I wound up going back a few times a year, and every time I was in the neighborhood, I'd stop by. While doing so, there was this white DeLorean just sitting over there, and I had noticed it off and on, and I said the first thing that everybody else says, why would you paint a DeLorean? And I still stay true to that fact. But after checking it out, I was like, what's the deal on this thing anyway? It's been here for like 6 months. He says, well, the guy who bought it, he did all this work to it, sunk probably close to 40 grand into it over the last 4 or 5 years. He's got some issues that he needs to take care of. And I'm like, well, what's he want for it? And I'm like, well, he's asking 22, 23 grand. I'm like, that's just way more than I've got, more than I'm willing to spend right now on a DeLorean. But I appreciate the opportunity. He's like, well, if you want, just shoot him an offer. I know he'd really like to sell it to you, and we'd love to see you back in another car. I'm like, well, so would I. So I go ahead and I make him an offer of what I think is just stupid. And I shoot him a little bit below 15 grand. And I'm thinking, done, won't have to worry about it. There's a good price. If I get it, great. If not, I'm not going to lose sleep over it. Calls me back a day later. Well, congratulations, you got a DeLorean. I go, what did I just do? So now, liquidate some stocks, and I go ahead and I pull the trigger and I walk down there with cash and I pick up my dream car for the second time. And I've had it ever since. It's been 2.5 years now. I've been out in LA, just turned 2016, and I've had this since 2014. Beginning of 2014 now. So far she's running like a top. Very little trouble, I should say, and it's a lot of fun. And now, actually, after having this one, I don't know that I can go back to stainless. I'd like to at some point, but I kind of dig the paint. So it's always good because I can see which one is mine. It has everything that I'd ever want to do to it. It's lowered. It's got a custom stereo, headers, intake, exhaust, headache. Doesn't sound right. It can be a headache sometimes. It's only left me stranded once, and that was partially my fault. I ran her a little bit too hard, but done a couple of road rallies with this car. I definitely maxed out what I could on the speedometer, and yes, it was going downhill. I think I hit 140, 135, somewhere in there. The speedometer is bouncing a little bit with a little bit of 80s technology, but consistently I can do 120 thanks to Snapchat. I'm sure that's very accurate. And whenever the speedometer is working, it's what she reads. But she's been well over 88 a few times, and still runs good. Let's check it out. So I actually bought this car from the previous owner of a small local shop in Orange County, Garden Grove, just DMC DeLorean. DeLorean motor cars. Didn't have a name rights or anything. Just a nice guy living in Orange County fixing DeLoreans. Had been a mechanic ever since, I don't know, since the dawn of time, I think, since they came out with the car. His name was Don. Super nice guy. Well, Don went ahead and decided that it was about getting that time, and he wanted to go ahead and hand over to someone else. So Steve Wynn, no relation to the Vegas Wynn, approached him, and Steve has bought the namesake rights to DeLorean motor cars, DMC. he's the big guy in Texas who has any and everything you could possibly imagine for this car. Again, another head tech from way back in the day who started wrenching on him over in the UK and then came over here and made a pretty good living for himself. So he bought the name rights to him, and then he approached Don and said, hey, if you're interested in selling, I'd like to buy. Don said, you know what? Yeah, I think it'd be going to a good home. Steve has a son who already lives in Huntington Beach and surfs all the time and has a great life for himself. And Steve was like, well, son, why don't you run this and I'll make this your life again. So he goes all the way out here to California to escape the DeLorean motor car from the Texas lifestyle, and then he comes out here and gets stuck right back in it. So now Cameron, his son, owns, runs, and operates DeLorean in Huntington Beach. Great place, by the way. They can do anything and everything. They can even build you one brand new, because everyone, that's the first question they ask. Where am I going to find parts for this thing? Is it hard to find parts? Where do you get parts? How expensive are they? It's really not too bad. Like any car, it's the labor that kills you. But the parts are readily available, and most of them, they can build you a brand new one in Huntington Beach with a warranty if you really wanted to from the ground up. Might take some time. So, I picked this up probably about 2 years ago, pretty much as it sits. Floor poppers, leather seats, everything was in pretty good condition. Luckily, I have the hindsight of knowing not to throw good money after bad, and sometimes if you get into a DeLorean for 50, 60 grand, like some of these people who it's a love, I love the car so much, I'll do anything to save it. That's great, you do that, I'll buy it from you when you want to get rid of it in another 5 years. So I bought this one for a pretty good deal. As you can see, I've got anything and everything I could ever want in this car. It's already got a custom subwoofer, a couple of 6x9s in the back, nice little amp, leather seats, everything still pretty much works. They went ahead and they switched it, got the gated 5-speed shifter. It's a lot of fun. They redid all the head panels, tinted the windows. This is one of those fun things that you're like, oh yeah, sure, I can tint the windows on a car, no big deal. After the guys usually tint the windows on a DeLorean, they're like, all right, next DeLorean I do, I'm charging double. It's a real pain. So you have to get both of these little inserts, and yes, this is the only piece of the window that actually rolls down. And then this, it's just a window in itself. It's hard to get to. So now you have to measure this without being able to really get in the car, and yeah, it can be a pain. But as I said, it was already done when I bought it, so one less thing to worry about. The top of the engine here, show you the bead. Now, some of you are going to be saying, oh, I'm looking for a show car. Is this a show car? Is everything nice and clean and show worthy? No. I drag the wheels off this thing. Cold air intake, you've got what's basically a Volvo 2.9 liter. Now originally this car, as we talked earlier, came with maybe about 115 horsepower. Luckily, this one has a little bit more. I've got a cam in there, we've got headers, intake, exhaust. All that together probably puts me, I'm hoping, somewhere maybe around 165 with the way it's tuned. So, again, it's not going to win any races, but it'll have enough power to at least get up and get out of the way for it. Oh, here's a fun thing. For all of those DeLorean owners out there, this is just flimsy fiberglass. Unless you truly know the car and know your car, if you're going to put this down, use both sides. If you just pull from one side, you're going to break and it's going to get stress fractures. So, hint. As I said, exhaust was already done. She sounds the part, she looks the part. Yes, I know, again, it is white. And everyone's like, well, you can customize it because you're running just a 4x100 pattern. You can put any wheels on this you want for pretty much any Honda. I'm like, yeah, I could. But why? Why would I do that? These old turbine wheels look great. Yes, I'm running almost like a 65 series tire in the rear, but who cares? It's a DeLorean. Look at it. I love it. As you can see, it's literally the same shape as a door stop. It's just a giant wedge. Classic design, it's your typical sports car. If you were 5 years old and sketching a car, yeah, you can either draw the boxes or you literally just drop one giant slash across the paper and throw some wheels on it. And that's kind of how you wind up with a DeLorean. I mean, it obviously was a little bit more complicated than that. I'm sure they did a few more things, but pretty much how you came to this. Yeah, I love it. Give me a second. So, obviously, everyone has seen Back to the Future. And the jokes, they never get old when you're driving it. Oh, I never get tired. Hey, Marty, you going 88? Oh, it's so funny. Don't do that. Don't be that guy. Yes, we've all seen the movie. That's why I have the car. I've seen it. I don't need you rehearsing it for me. And badly, I might add, because if you're going to know the quotes, at least know them correctly. I don't just need a random butthead thrown in every now and again. Sometimes it can be fun. But... So, the history behind this thing. John DeLorean, who was essentially the Hugh Hefner of the auto industry, came out youngest GM for General Motors, youngest VP, youngest everything. And they gave him this position. They're like, hey, we want to promote you to the highest ranking in General Motors. We want you to be everything. And he's like, no, I'm good. I'm going to go keep enjoying my hot supermodel wife and my luxury party lifestyle. And I'm going to take off and pursue another dream and goal I had. And I'm going to go build my own sports car. And he did, in the narcissistic fashion. Of course, he named it after himself, but with a cool name like DeLorean, I would too. So John Zachary DeLorean went off and pretty much tried to find, as with most cars now, what's the best economical way I can make my dream come true? So you go to the kind of lowest bidders and you're like, hey, what about Ireland? Ireland's not really doing too well now, but they do have a lot of very good tradesmen and craftsmen, and maybe we can build a car over there for cheap. So he winds up going over to Belfast, Ireland, setting up shop, getting a ton of money from the British government to help fund his project. And unfortunately, as we all know, it didn't really work out so well. But where the genius lies is he was a salesman among salesmen. And that's probably how he rose to the ranks of where he was at General Motors. He literally was in a room with probably 3 engineers, and he's like, okay guys, all right, we're here together to make a great car and to make a dream come true. I need everyone to kind of introduce yourselves. I'll be back, I'm gonna go grab a cup of coffee. He'd leave and he'd be like, yeah, hi, I'm Barrett, I'm the chief designer. The other guy would be like, I'm, Bill. He said, I was the chief designer. And the other guys, what position did they tell you? They told me I was the chief designer too. So all these guys are here, he's paying them all, they're like, you know what, let's just do this, let's build a car. That's why you've got Peugeot, Volvo, and Renault. 3 names that are not really good for reliability or power or performance. Well, certain toys, yeah, like the Clio and stuff like that, but we won't get into that. That's a whole other episode. So they all come together and they build this, which unfortunately came out right at the height of the economic crisis and the fuel crisis, where there was, I think, a national speed limit in the US of 55 miles an hour. So originally these came with only a speedometer that goes up to 85. And at 2.9 liters, that's right, 2.9 liters, where we've got Honda engines with a 1.6 that create 165 horsepower. No, out of this 2.9 liter, we had 110, hopefully. Automatic was 95. It's just, they're not good numbers. Luckily, this one's been tuned, so it's got a few more ponies under there to help get it up and get out of the way, and maybe do a donut or 2, or 3 or 4, or however long the tires last. But so now, fast forward a little bit. John's got the company up and running. DeLorean's a little bit over budget, to say the least. He's got more money coming in from the British government, and now the car's landed in the US at a price much higher than originally anticipated at $25,500. So you're looking at a car that is not really going to compete with a Corvette like it was originally anticipated. Now you're looking at a car that's more or less the same price as a Ferrari, and although it kind of matches the looks of like an old 308 at the time, we're still light years away from a Lamborghini Countach. But it is what it is. John DeLorean wasn't doing so well. He wound up getting caught up in a conspiracy. A guy called him and basically offered to bail him out. They're like, hey, if you can kind of help put this deal together, we'll go ahead, we'll give you a few million, and hopefully that'll help out with your troubles right now. Obviously, he's seeing his dream just flush down the tubes. He's trying to figure out any way to save it. Sure, yeah, he reluctantly goes along with it. That winds up being the conspiracy where the FBI entrapped him for cocaine trafficking. The cocaine, obviously bought from Max Mermelstein. If you watch, a couple of documentaries out there, it's really an intense story about the whole early 80s, the cocaine cowboys. But getting back to John, since it was entrapment, the judge finds the same thing, gets off scot-free. Serves, I think, maybe an overnight in jail, gets bailed out. And unfortunately, he never makes his fortune back. The British government at this point, with all the bad press and bad publicity, seize the molds, destroy mostly everything, and whatever original parts and pieces they can get out of the factory are taken off somewhere and just kind of hoarded away. The car slowly dies, but with the rebirth of technology and the internet, starts making a little bit of a comeback. Now all these cars that are just sitting in people's backyards rotting away are now being brought back to life, because now I can get a hold of someone in the middle of nowhere or across the country and say, hey, I need this tiny little piece and my car is good to go again. Hey, I've got this piece, do you have that piece? And next thing you know, eBay comes along and people start readily putting up miscellaneous parts, and DeLoreans come back to life. Little shops start springing up all over the country. All these DeLorean mechanics from back in the 80s are still trying to pursue, and luckily there's enough of them back on the road that you can make a pretty good living out of running a shop. Well, it's where I got mine from. So I didn't do a lot of the customizing on this one, but I am very proud and happy to be driving it, and I look forward to many more miles and many more years with one. So hopefully, as long as I got money in my pocket, there will still be one in my garage. If I have to buy or sell another 2, 3, 4 cars to kind of keep this parked, then that's what I'll do. Just keep flipping cars and gotta make money. It's the best part about the dream. Just keep chasing it. So yeah, guys, that's my story here on Fresh Out. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I didn't bore you too bad. So tune into my boys' other great videos from Marcus here in Fresh Out, and guys who fix or flip cars, and hopefully it was entertaining for you. So catch you on the next one.